Okay, so it's been a bit since I've done something like this, but welcome back. This is the Eclectics review. Today I have something pretty special. I've been connecting with a lot of different artists lately, and I decided that I wanted to pick up doing interviews again. And I just looked through my friends list and the people that were following me and sent a couple of messages. And one that I got back, which is really interesting, is from the Zfx Collective. They are a collective from Amsterdam. I interviewed ZF from the ZFX Collective and just talked about their artwork and sort of their platform and their background and their history and their connections to the community, the differences between community there and where I am, and just talked about the collaborative nature of the collective, because although ZF is the person that runs the Instagram account of the collective, it very much is a highly collaborative effort, which does have its own unique artistic voice. And it's something that is very emphasized in the interview, that it's a platform as well for branching out to other unknown artists and just collaborating with them, and then keeping tabs and then building community through collaboration. They're very well connected to a bunch of different artists, and we had a little chit chat. It was a 6-hour difference, so I was up at 4 a.m. to do the interview, but it was very much worth it, 100%. It's a very interesting interview. Their artwork is very interesting. All their collaborators are amazing. Just very insane internet glitch work and artwork. I want to continue doing more of these, so I'm going to continue hitting up artists, but also trying to do more local interviews. I will be showing a lot of work from the ZFX Collective throughout this video. I will be crediting all the artists and linking everything down in the description of the video. And this is the interview with the ZFX Collective, interviewing ZF. Hope you enjoy. Okay, yeah, so we have a very special guest today. ZFX, is that like the name that you would prefer I use for you?
Doesn't really matter. I mean, I guess ZF is just because it goes like as the ZeroFaux, and then the X is mainly just like to connect it to the collective part, so to say.
Oh, okay, so ZF. Okay, cool. So we have ZF today, a digital artist and also part of a digital artist collective called the ZFX Collective. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for asking.
Yeah,
Like we just discussed a second ago, it's pretty early over here and it's very late over there.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
on opposite ends. But yeah, I'm fine. I'm a little under the weather, but I should be fine. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
yeah. Thank you for being here. So yeah, let's, I guess, just start off in talking about your history to art, how you got to creating this page and this collective.
Yeah. Honestly, it's amateur hour all the way down. For the most part. I don't really have an extensive history with art, as in I haven't done any art studies. I have encountered a lot of art in different styles through my parents, where I've always been active in different parts of the scene. But as far as my own study, I'm a social worker, so I'm not the art world isn't exactly my trade.
Mm.
It's mostly just a hobby project. And the collective is it's a strong word. Let's put it that way. It's mostly it came to be through basically just some old forums I've always been active on forums, music forums, some political forums. And at some point, there were just a couple friends that, like, some of them worked in like photography, some of them did some sketch work, and we just kind of just took the shit on the forums and just brought ideas together. And at some point, we just figured like we could just start up a page and just kind of try to bring some ideas together. But as far as most of the edits and most of the publications on the page itself, those are mine. And the collective part is mostly just an offshoot through like just discussing concepts with and ideas or things that we think might mix together well through Discord and forums. So there's not so much like a lot of artists working together on a single project on the page, but it's more like just through ideas that we bring together on Discord and forums. And then because they have their own pages, but they're mostly. I mean, I don't think they have any professional training. Like they're just hobbyists as well.
Yes.
But we all just enjoy looking at and experiencing art through different mediums.
Yeah, that seems that's also like very similar to my like history with art, that like it's something that I picked up. I have more of a like a media background. I studied media production, and it was more like around the time COVID hit that I just decided like I wanted to have like a tool that allowed me to create art on like a daily basis, and through that like you find these tools and like you are able to collaborate with other people, which is like really interesting. Yeah, that's really cool. There's like a very cohesive like style to like a lot of the work. So yeah, it like makes sense that it's like you collaborating with all these people and like creating like a pretty unique voice, as also while also like pulling in all these other talents. That's really interesting.
It's I mean, I consider myself lucky that I'm trusted with a lot of people's work at this point, and then just being allowed like a big backlog of ideas and concepts that they've basically decided are like free use. So whenever there's like a concept or like a fitting idea that comes to pass, I can just ask them if I can use a certain, a couple of pieces of theirs and then try to fit them together along with other people's work, which is awesome. Like it's a lot of fun to work with, especially because, as you probably know, I mainly use like glitching programs. Which like allow for a very like it's a very accessible tool to kind of mix different styles together. So it's a lot of fun to use, like paintworks or like drawings or photography or just architecture, and just try to mix it together. And it's really through a huge process of mainly just trial and error. It's this constant trial and error. It's just constantly throwing things together, seeing what sticks, throwing things at the wall, and like whenever a series does get published, there's probably 100 or hundreds of outtakes that just didn't match. So it's not a very elegant process. It's not an elegant process. It's just trial and error and just finding things that eventually stick.
Yeah. No, I mean that is the best process, and just like creating and iterating on like so many works. What tools do you use for making your work?
Very basic ones. So I really have next to no experience when it comes to like some of the more professional tools, like just the Photoshop, just the video editing software. I have very little experience with it. So the most like there's a couple of like After Effects tools I use on the laptop, and then a lot of it just comes down to apps on the phone. Just one lab, Glitch Lab, some Chroma Lab, and on all of those like smaller apps have some functions that serve some purpose for different series. But it's made, a lot of the work just gets done by phone. Then obviously the different elements that come together through those apps, that's mixed media. So there's paint work and there's photography, and then you can kind of bring those together through those apps. But as far as just the software itself is concerned, it's very lowbrow. Just mostly through my phone, really.
Interesting. Where do you draw inspiration from for like creating these like series works and stuff like that? I know that it's like very collaborative, but I guess just like as a broad overview for like your work, and then like more into the micro of it, of like it's developing specific ideas and the
Yeah.
the colors and like all these things.
I mean, you can probably tell there's some palettes I'm more drawn to than others.
Yes, for sure.
Like, there's a lot of red, there's a lot of purple.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of tend to gravitate towards those palettes just because of personal preference, although I do try to branch out a little bit. I guess conceptually, it's a bit of a mix and match because to a certain extent, I do, especially when I'm trusted with working with art pieces of someone else, I do try to at least kind of preserve some of the DNA and some of the essence of their work within the series. So I try to kind of expand on what they had in mind or what I think they had in mind or my interpretation of their work. So I don't try to, I try to not override what they had in mind initially. And I try to more like just expand on it or just kind of give a different spin on their work. And then personally, as far as the inspiration, I guess it's a little eclectic. I've always been a big dork, so there's like a big. I've always been big on sci-fi, big on fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm big on folklore. So I've especially some earlier series there were I enjoy just giving a spin to like some some classic folk tales, some classic like from Greek mythology or from some philosophical concepts, just giving a spin on those. And then a lot of the I guess some silver lining in a lot of the series I put out have to do with some architecture. So I really enjoy like some stark contrast between some maybe some philosophical or more I guess new agey or sci-fi or fantasy concepts, and then contrasting it with like really stark and rigid architecture, like brutalist architecture, kind of just modern, rigid, cold textures and stone, because I just kind of enjoy the contrast and the mixing of those elements.
Yeah.
Which sometimes it works and very often it doesn't. But honestly, I have to say, a lot of the time when a series gets published, I'm dissatisfied immediately after, and oftentimes either I remove the series entirely or I remove bits and pieces afterwards because it either didn't really catch the feel of both styles, or I feel like I override the original artist's work too much. So it's I definitely always tell them it's a work in progress on my end as well. So when I'm communicating with the collabs, I always tell them like I just can't. I'm just constantly bombarding them with tons of outtakes and concepts and ideas, and I always tell them like, please feel free to tell me to fuck off with this concept or try something else entirely, right? Because I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to get a feel for what they're going for, and then kind of giving it my own spin.
Mm-hmm.
But it's tricky sometimes, and sometimes you don't really manage to come to like an agreement with some collabs, which is fine. Sometimes they're just not feeling what you had in mind, and sometimes they really enjoy it. Sometimes you can just have like a good back and forth and come to new ideas together. But in any case, it's just a lot of fun to kind of delve into someone's work like that, and because it really challenges you because to not get like stuck to get like tunnel vision, because you're constantly experimenting with different styles and with different art forms and different expertises, which kind of forces you to at least learn something about their process and something about their processes,
Mm-hmm.
in order to come to like a mixed product. Uh, so it's a lot of fun to just kind of experiment with it and see what works for them and what works eventually.
Yeah, and like finding what is like cohesive in like the two styles, and
Yeah,
like finding that middle ground is really important for sure.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. So How is like the art scene there? Like this sort of thing popular there? Because it's very different from like country to country that I've seen.
Yeah, I would say the art scene as far as the Swiss art scene is, as far as I can tell, pretty much negligible. Uh, like I've gone to I go to some physical events every now and then. I meet some local artists, and I've done some collabs with local artists as well. But as far as I can tell, like glitching as a concept or glitching as a a way of processing art or media is not very well known. I mean, it's not very well known to me either, right? I'm very new to this as well,
Mm-hmm.
so I can't blame anyone. But there's obviously digital art is a big thing, but mostly through illustrations and mostly through different programs than the glitching programs.
Yeah.
So glitching specifically isn't very well known. But I would say the art scene as a whole is pretty lively and pretty healthy in Amsterdam. Although it is noticeable that there's very big cuts on like culture and the art scene in the Netherlands as well. So there's, it's a very tough life to make a living as an artist over here as well. So you do see people kind of just struggling to find a way to get bread on the table, right? If art is really just their means of life, it's tricky, right? And they have to. So you do see people open to the concept because they're open to trying different things to kind of get themselves out there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's mostly just more classical or legacy programs and art forms at most of the meetings I've been to. But it's still a lot of fun to talk to them about it. Although, yeah, it's a new concept. It's definitely not really established here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
It has it been more established over there? Like,
over here there is a lot of like funding for, so I'm in Canada. Um
mhm.
and there is like a lot of funding for like public arts and that sort of thing, but it's very similar here. It's a very niche thing, but I also live in Toronto, like the largest city in the country, so
Right.
it's like a very artistic city as well, but it's a very like niche thing, like but like I know it's like it's also very accessible, so like I can spread like this like medium to so many people who wouldn't generally create art, like I
Yeah.
imagine how you were when you started. But yeah, it's like it's a very unique art form here, and people do, it's like a lot of people do more experimental work in like visual in music, and like a lot of like music
Mhm.
productions here and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
there's like a lot of like electronic music, and that's where like there's like a sort of like more niche area to be able to like have this sort of like glitch art style.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You see it in live shows every now and then, right? You see some clips where people are like glitching live,
Yeah, yeah,
which is
they do
awesome.
like VJing and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks really dope. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and there's also like the on Instagram and like all these platforms, you begin to get absorbed by like a community, because there's like an algorithm that is, as you publish work and like you do these things, it gets pushed to people who are interested in these sorts of things, and then like they follow you back, and there's other artists as well, and then you build, and that like a community forms like around this. So like
Yeah.
I guess what how have you viewed this like sort of like the internet side of like the community rather than like the
I would say
physical?
I love the community part of it. Right. I think as far as the glitching community, like the glitching community specifically is concerned, and I guess a lot of art communities online, the communities themselves are very welcoming overall and open to new ideas and open to discussing new ideas. As far as the platform itself is concerned, I think Instagram is fucking ass. I think it's horrible. I think it's the worst platform really, because there's really, I'm pretty sure like the only way to really get yourself out there is to follow the algorithm, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
just it's a machine, and you just kind of have to play by a very weird rule book in order to get yourself out there. So you see a lot of new artists having to branch themselves out through just constant reels, right? Just constantly pushing reels and just trying to like with like walls of text, trying to hit like key points for the algorithm
Yeah.
in order to reach like new people. Because as far as me hitting the algorithm, I think the way I'm publishing is the worst way, pretty much.
Yeah.
I because I'm releasing maybe one series a week, sometimes less, and constantly it's dropping off. Like every like after like 2 or 3 days, it's dropping off. So you can kind of see in the viewership that it's not a very effective way. And I've been told many times, you know, in order to really reach like new viewers and new audiences, you'd really have to push for reels and push for just constant or more updates, like posting every day or once every day or every other day, which is, I mean, it's an impossible ask, I think, for artwork in general, right? Like, how are you gonna be publishing every day or every other day to reach new people? So it's kind of an impossible ask to hit that algorithm, I think, for most artists. Um, so I think as far as being accessible or being like a healthy platform for artists, I think Instagram is not. It's not a great platform, but they have a monopoly at pretty much, right? I mean, there's been some other platforms that have tried, like you used to have like DeviantArt and those types of things, but they've kind of been completely pushed off Instagram. So you kind of have to play by the book a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't think like the way the algorithm pushes you to put yourself out there is a healthy way to, I don't know, to put yourself out there as an artist, as a starting artist. Like you can't be trying to push yourself, release something every day. If you really want to dive into a subject, or if you really want to expand on it, like different ideas. So you see a lot of smaller artists just falling off. They're great. They're great at what they do. They're amazing sketch artists. They're amazing at drawing or painting. But you can't expect them to really develop and really grow as an artist if they have to publish their baseline map. You get what I mean?
Yeah,
It's,
like you're not like when you're on like Instagram and these things, you're basically not an artist, you're a content creator. And so like
exactly.
it's like a
Yeah,
constant like hustle to publish the next
really.
thing and like release. So yeah.
Yeah.
Do you use any other platforms other than Instagram to
No,
showcase work?
no. I've tried a couple. Like in the past, it's been a while, but in the past, I've tried some DeviantArt. There's been a couple of startups like Quora or something, but and I tried TikTok for like a month, and it just gave me a huge headache. I just
Yes.
got off there quick enough because it has a different algorithm, and there's different ways to reach some new audiences, but then the types of audiences you do reach are not the audiences you eventually want to be looking for.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So I think Instagram is pretty much the only real way to put yourself out there besides just local initiatives, right? Just local platforms, but then local shops or places you can actually physically expose your work.
Mm-hmm.
But then that's obviously a different ballpark because you do have to get you do have to print your work out and you do have to publish it physically.
Yeah.
But as far as in the digital space, I'm not sure if there's any other real alternatives. Do you know of any do you use any different other platform?
I use like Instagram like the most because it's like it's like a one place for as like a portfolio site almost. Um
Yeah.
yeah, like I'm not very focused on like growing my account. I only have like 500 followers and like I like create pieces like almost every day for like 2 years at one point. And
Yeah.
I just use it as like a portfolio. Um but I recently like created an account on, have you seen like the new media site, I think it's what they're called. They're like
No.
I think they're like also like a collective of like a bunch of different artists, and they have like this website that like connects people to like other projects as like a collaborative thing.
Oh,
I haven't like touched it too much, and yeah, like I guess I'm just like giving giving them free publicity right now, but yeah.
yeah,
um yeah,
and any alternative program, yeah.
I use YouTube and this sort of thing for like my magazine, and Substack for writing things, but for publishing like visual art, it's mostly just kept to like Instagram. And yeah, the physical form, that's the where you have like the most impact is in your local community, and that's where
Yeah.
you being able to showcase something physically is like can be costly, but it's a huge payoff at the end.
Yeah. It turns into somewhat of like a catch-22 in the sense that like even physical spaces, they're gonna require you to have like an Instagram portfolio, right?
Yeah.
Like every major publication or public auction site, the first thing they ask for your Instagram portfolio, like you really can't do without it. But then at the same time, as far as your portfolio is concerned, Instagram is kind of it's like every picture gets compressed to 1 MB each, right?
Oh
That's the
yeah,
max. So that the compression is just worst.
it
It's
like
it's it's
ruins like
it's
things.
it's,
Yeah.
it's awful. It's just devastating sometimes when you upload it, because like especially like when you preview like your series, like the final filters and adjustments, like it still shows you the original quality, and then you publish it, and it gets just completely fucked, and all the detail gets washed out.
Yeah.
So as far as a portfolio, it's kind of just a terrible platform, I think, as well. So if there ever would be like a platform where you could upload like full quality, full image size images to showcase, I mean that would be great. But I mean I haven't seen it.
Yeah. I just remembered looking on like Reddit and like some of those communities and stuff like that. It's also very, very difficult connecting with some of those communities
Yeah,
sometimes as well.
and overrun with bots. Like it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It's. I mean that internet theory is it's kind of you kind of see like it coming to fruition in some parts. Like Reddit is a big part of it. I think a lot of it is uh, just an echo chamber and just pretty much bot dominated communities. Like I think there's like a glitch subreddit, but it's completely dead. And I think that goes for most like small niche art subreddits. And then if you come to like the bigger communities and the bigger art subreddits, it's completely dominated by just bot accounts and reposts and just stolen art or just plain AI art.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just like a shell.
it really is. Yeah.
Yeah. What are you working on right now?
I'm working with a couple of artists. Two of them I've worked with in the past, like No Seas, like a graffiti artist, and then there's two new artists. And we're currently just looking at actually a series that's mostly focusing on integrating architecture as well, some brutalist buildings. And it's kind of a mixture between some more graffiti style and drawings mixed into just brutalist buildings and architecture. I mean, it's probably close to done. I think we're about 80%
Hmm.
on that series now, so it should be done soon. But we'll have to see how long it takes exactly. And, I mean, there's a lot of things in the cooker though. There's at this point there's a lot of finished concepts, a lot of half-finished series that I'm still gonna have to get around to. I mean, it's not a chore. Like I'm saying it like it's a chore. Like I feel like very, I'm happy with a lot of people sending me their work and allowing me to play around with it and see if we can come to like a good mix. But it does get a little tricky to sometimes, find the path forward through all of the different mixtures and all of the different drawings and photographs in order to get like kind of like a cohesive concept together in the end that works for everyone involved. Because that does get tricky, right? Because when there's like 3 or 4 people involved in a single series and they all have different opinions on what works for them in the publication, it does get a little tricky to kind of appease everyone in both the palettes and both like the shapes and feel and the concept or the title. So it does get a little tricky sometimes to kind of get everyone together on the same page. But yeah, usually it works for the most part. Yeah.
Oh. So that's what you're currently working on.
Yeah.
How do you view your relationship to the technology that you use for like creating this work? Because it's very technologically heavy, like in the sense that like we're very connected to our devices to be able to create these things, and it becomes like a sort of like imaging of the sort of like subconscious of like that connection of the internet and our like biological selves.
I mean, that's a statement, and I agree. I mean, I think I'm not sure if I can really have. I'm not sure if I have a good answer to it. Definitely, as far as the glitching programs, it's purely digital and purely technological. So I guess what does help me in not kind of getting lost in the sauce, so to say, is especially just focusing on putting both physical works and physical elements and digital elements together. So, I mean, a lot of the work I publish, there's elements like I just go outside and I take photographs of buildings, right? And they don't have to be spectacular buildings. They don't have to be like intricate buildings, but just like sharp corners or deep textures or like cool window paintings, and just taking bits and pieces of the physical space and then having those pieces provide textures and shapes in some of the layering. So in that sense, I guess I kind of keep myself from losing my mind in staring at my phone all day, even though everything goes on through my phone, obviously. But definitely, I do think I have to keep touching grass because at my job, like my job is very mostly sitting at a computer as well, and especially legacy or just original, a painter is still like in the physical space, doing things with his hands, and or a sculptor is really just getting his hands dirty, literally. And I think that does definitely bring a different dimension and like a different it brings something of themselves like into their work, right? They're really physically touching and shaping their work, and it's not the same through your phone, obviously. Although I will say, like through the glitching programs, what I do like is that there is a lot of like physical, so let's say like touch ups, right? You're constantly moving shapes around, you're constantly moving textures around, like just through finger movements and just trying to get shapes in order, right? So there is like a painterly touch to it, so to say. It's not just putting layers together through pressing a button over and over again. There is a lot of just moving shapes around. So there is that connection, I guess, to the process. But definitely, I do take a lot of inspiration from the physical work as well, which is why I really appreciate being allowed or not having to use or rely on AI anymore to use assets, right? Because obviously it's a great tool to just quickly get some assets ready.
Yeah.
But then if you just publish just AI assets as is, it's lifeless, and there's really nothing of you mixed into the process, or of anyone else for that matter. So being able to use like different people's work outside of AI does help a lot because you kind of get to know their process and know their work more intimately, and you kind of get to delve into like a more personal side of their work, which is more of a challenge. It challenges you more, and it kind of it keeps you getting tunnel vision or just like moving dead or lifeless images around. It was definitely like a lot less fun working with AI. A lot more fun working with people's actual work and actually discussing with them what worked for them, what they have envisioned. It kind of just brings the process to life, even though it is through the digital form.
Yeah, it's very.
Yeah, it's a mismatch. I mean, I definitely think there's like every time I open up the page or the grid, I think they call it. There's definitely just a lot of the same palettes I've noticed. So I do feel like I gotta say though, I've everyone I'm collaborating with, I always tell them I'm really bad at less is more. That's really, it's not a strong suit. I'm constantly, I really have a tendency to overwork a lot of the series. I really have a big tendency to just not know when to stop. And just seeing like blank space or seeing empty space, I just have to fill it in with more and more and more until it's just there's no depth to it. There's no, it kind of everything gets lost in some of its parts. So it's definitely a learning process to kind of take a step back every now and then and kind of put the work that we're working on or the series, put it to rest, which is kind of as a sidestep, kind of why I try to not get too pressured into releasing more or sooner or faster, and just kind of keeping a steady pace of maybe releasing once a week, maybe a little less, because I do feel like I really need that to take a step back every now and then and just kind of put it to rest for a day or two, or maybe just work on something else for a while. Because I think if I just completely zone in until from start to finish and until I release it, it's just going to be way too many pixels in every image. It's just completely cluttered usually.
So would you say that you don't feel a work is like accomplished until it fills your like senses, basically? Like, I guess how do you decide when something is like completed?
It's a good question. I guess it differs a little bit depending on the series. Sometimes the concept, it kind of depends on whether there's an idea or a concept that we're working towards from the get-go, like a kind of clear idea of where it's going to go conceptually. It might be like a philosophical or a fantasy or a sci-fi theme, but it's kind of, if it's like clear cut from the get-go and it's kind of clear what elements need to pop out and what elements need to be clear. And then I guess usually those series, it's easier to kind of know when it's done because the elements or like either like the image, like the figure or the concept kind of usually it's a lot of like a lot of the feedback definitely helps those with those series when especially when someone has like a clear preference of what they'd like to see or what they'd like to pop out. I can just kind of take a step back as soon as they think it's complete or as soon as they're satisfied. And then sometimes it's just more off the cuff. Like the more abstract series are definitely just more off the cuff, and it's just there's no real it's not really ever done, right? Especially with abstract, when do you decide when it's done? Because there's no real figure or no real definitive shape that has to pop out or has to be finished. So it gets a little bit more tricky to see when it's done. So it's mostly just whenever it feels right, whenever the shapes match, or whenever it kind of just hits that spot for you aesthetically. It's mostly just an aesthetic thing, I think, at that point. Like, do the colors match? Or enough breathability to a certain extent, like that, not like the shapes that you like the most, or the colors, or the layers the most. Haven't they been lost in the process? Like, do they still retain some of their original DNA, and are they still legible? And then when you get elements together, and the elements you like the most are still legible, and you like the again, at that point it's done. But it's like I said, it's usually or most often whenever I publish a series, I'm dissatisfied with a lot of it, and there's constantly just I'm thinking like a lot of things could have been done differently. So it's not clear cut. There's very little times when I'm thinking like the series is complete and it's completely done, and I'm completely satisfied with it. Yeah, it's never really completely done, I guess.
Yeah, you'll never. It's like, yeah, I feel the same. It's very difficult to become satisfied with like a final thing, and like being like, this is it. is like a very difficult thing to.
Yeah. You have a lot of abstracted work as well, right? Like, what is your process when it comes to like starting like on a project and then deciding when it's finished? Do you have
It's
like a
it's changed a lot like over the last couple of years, and it changes based on like where I grab images from. Like for a while I was grabbing a lot of images from like it's like an open source website of scanned pages from books and stuff like that, and that like
Mhm.
creates a very different product to when I'm doing just photography outside and taking pictures of
Yeah.
like nature. But there are like certain themes that like I become like attracted to, and
Mhm.
it's
What are
it,
some of
sorry.
what are some of those themes
Oh,
mostly?
like I like nature and a lot of like texture and things that a lot of like photos that you see in like my processes are just very random, a wall or something like that, just something that seems to have a texture that pops out to me. And
Yeah.
then taking that and then yeah, like going through like an abstraction process. When I originally started, it was going full out as much as I could, and like yeah, doing that thing of like
Mhm.
just overloading the senses as much as you can. And then like when you create enough of like that work, you begin to like, okay, I'm gonna pull it back and like one certain aspect, or I'm gonna add something in like another part, or
Yeah.
yeah. And it's I haven't collaborated too much with like other artists, but you mentioned like maintaining the DNA of piece, and that's something that
Yeah.
also will affect how much abstraction there is in something when you're trying to maintain a discernible shape that is trying to like tell like a story basically. But
Yeah.
it's something, yeah, like you understand this as well. It's you're trying to make something cohesive, and that changes from time to time, and what you're trying to like
Yeah.
articulate basically.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, it is interesting though that I mean, it kind of makes sense. I guess that's something I should try more often is just kind of taking a single part or like just zooming in more on a single piece of something you're working on and kind of just breaking it apart and seeing which of those parts are you want to like are integral to the to the piece and just kind of zooming in more on a single piece because like I said a lot of the time I'm trying to just too much right there's just too many elements that I don't want to lose which kind of negates, the readability or the of the entire piece as a whole, or it kind of just makes it too much of a mismatch, and it just kind of gets like it just kind of gets lost, trying to combine too many things at once instead of just kind of zooming out on just a single element or zooming out on just a single piece or part of the puzzle, which kind of yeah. I should definitely try to just kind of zoom in more. I guess just kind of taking it apart more and kind of be more minimalistic, I guess, in my approach,
Mm-hmm.
which I've been trying, but I'm really bad at it. I mean, you could call it ADD, and sometimes meditation helps,
Yeah.
but it's definitely it's tricky to kind of just not step into the same trap every now and again, and just wanting to overload the screen in the senses, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's like it's very compelling, and like it'll always
Yeah,
make something beautiful. And yeah, it's like a challenge to shift to something different other than that.
yeah.
Yeah.
It really is because, like, especially when I look at like more minimalistic accounts and and artists that just put out work that is like the screen is mostly blank, right? It's mostly like a void space, and there's just very minimalistic lines or very minimalistic textures. I really love it. I think I can really lose myself in those works as well. But I have no idea how to manage it. Like I have no idea how to do it, right? How they manage to really step back and really take the pressure. I'm not sure if it's about taking the pressure off, but it's I don't know. I'm not good at it. It's not my cup of tea. I guess even though I do really love looking at it, I wouldn't be able to do it myself. I guess.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, at the same time though, I guess it does definitely provide like a lot of room for collabs on that front. I guess. Like I would definitely try to learn, try to collab with more minimalistic artists and pages. I've reached out to a couple, and there's two people that are definitely a lot better at it that we're working on a series with. So I'm curious how that turns out, and if I'll be able to kind of really just take a load off and leave the series for what it is, and leave it be more minimalistic. Because I think my page there's just zero minimalistic
Yeah.
series on my page. It's just all completely filled in and chaotic. Yeah. So but I definitely want to try and give it more of a go.
I mean, there's like, you say that like a lot of it is like overloading, but like there are some works in here which they tend to use like a negative space, and so like you do like have like an understanding, especially for shadows and stuff like that. There is like like a difference in like the lights and the darks that like creates that like an awesome like minimal aspects to the works.
Do you have one you're looking at right now?
Let's see. I was looking at Neowulf Final by
right.
yeah. It's like picture of like a statue, I believe, and like the way that like the shadows like drop on like the faces and stuff like that, like it creates depth inside of like the image, and it like creates like a juxtaposition between the like the craziness, but then there's also like a subdued part to like some of the work.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was just I think there was that was a series made with like 2 or 3 of the other guys from the forums, and it was kind of a spin on I guess Beowulf, right? Like it's scale, and it was kind of just a spin on just instead of Beowulf being Neowulf, kind of more of a sci-fi spin on classic scale. But again, like especially with the negative spaces, you can tell immediately. With Zfx, that's a guy from the forums. He's a lot better at it. Kind of telling me to fuck off at some point and just telling me it's done and to lay off, basically. Because like you can see, like the third part of that series, there's a lot of just dark and space not filled in. Where I usually would have a tendency to just drop another layer and another layer and another layer until it's all filled in. But yeah, it's a fun example. Yeah.
Beautiful work. Yeah. So what do you have planned for the future, like with your work and that sort of thing? Like, of course, you're like collaborating a lot with like people, and you're doing your thing on the side, and so.
I guess honestly, there's no commercial plan whatsoever, and I guess that's mostly by choice. Well, partly I suck at commercializing these things. Like we printed a couple things, like a couple designs, like I think a year or 2 ago on some shirts, like the one I'm wearing right now, and we have had a couple things printed, but mostly for friends and family and people that would like one of the designs printed out. But as far as moving into like a commercial space and actually, and getting like a shop together or prints or merchandise, that's such a different ballpark altogether in order to find your space and find your audience in that regard. And I don't know, I would suck at it, and I think it would kind of take the life out of me in order to have to focus on that as well. Like right now, it's mostly just medium to express myself and to express and kind of give a platform to art forms and artists that I like. But I think I would prefer for the most part to keep it that way and to kind of just not focus at all on the commercial aspect of it. Because I don't know, I'm not sure if that would. First of all, we're too small, I think, to even be able to commercialize. But even if we would be able to, I'm not sure if that's like a scene or a space I would enjoy moving around in. To have to promote work, to have to market work, to have to really like push for like a commercial incentive. I'm not, yeah. I think that gets tricky in order as far as still being like an outlet and kind of being a way to just kind of take a load off and kind of just empty my mind and like after a day of work. which is a privilege, right? It's a privilege to not at this point have to commercialize it because I have a job and because it's not my way, it's not my means of making a living. But I mean, yeah. So as long as I can afford not to, I would prefer not to commercialize anything, I guess. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
How does that work? Do you have any experience on like the commercial side or
I have some, like I've done like a couple of galleries, but like I also produce physical paintings and stuff like that. And like I have done like some print work. I love turning these things into like physical forms. It's like the way that like they take up space and the way that they like function in physical spaces is like really interesting. They like I would love having physical forms of like your work and like this sort of thing because it's like, yeah, it's just like it.
I mean, we can
yeah.
We can make it happen anytime. I mean, those without saying, maybe like we can definitely hit like series together. Like, I mean, I enjoy your work a lot, so we could definitely like look at a series together. And I definitely get what you mean. The physical space does definitely add like an extra dimension to it. I can imagine.
Yeah, but like I agree with you with like the sort of like rat race of like the commercialization aspect of it. For me, I try to just use it as like a platform to meet people and connect with other artists and like, expand like my work because like I love just producing like different media, trying to get this like magazine going again, giving people like a platform to like showcase themselves and their ideas is like really important to me. And like I've met very interesting artists like through the physical form. There's also a lot of horrible artists like in the in like the market.
Like horror stories, or you mean like what do you mean?
I mean just like it's like some artists who are just like very very full of themselves and are just like very, I don't know, like yeah, like very pretentious, and the like conversations that you can have with like some artists can be like, oh my god, like so, I don't know, like such a task sometimes. But like it's just like it's always just there's always very interesting people, and it's like it's like everyone has like a very unique vision.
I mean that's awesome. If you like have like a reach or a way to reach physical audiences like that, that's awesome. Especially, but I can imagine so in Toronto that there's probably like audiences and crowds to be found in that way.
But it's still like very niche. I feel like it's not like huge like in like the art market and stuff like that. But there's like a space for it for sure. Yeah, but like my experience has also been like kind of limited in I haven't been to too many shows and stuff like that, but it's something that I want to do more in the future. Yeah, I mean we're like I think we're almost like at an hour of recording. Do you have anything else you want to say or like anything like that?
I haven't really thought about any any closing statements. No, I mean I guess for the most part, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you for like agreeing to do this. I'm very thankful and very, very excited that I'm able to do this, especially with like such an interesting artist and like creating like an international thing. Yeah.
I appreciate it. And definitely stay in touch as far as like looking at a series together. I mean, we can definitely make that work.
I'm so down. I would love to collaborate. Do you have anything to plug? Like I will like put all your links to everything that I can in like the description of like the video, and I'll
nothing to plug, I guess, as far as if you link work that other artists were involved in, you have to link them as well. So plug them as well. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So this has been ZF or from the Zfx Collective. Thank you so much for doing this. I highly appreciate this, and this is a very important interview. Thank you so much.
Pleasant. Thank you so much.
All right, you have a good day. See ya.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.